Hello everyone, welcome back to 3 News Now. It's Friday, July 24th. We have made it to Friday. This is your afternoon update with the top headlines from WKYC.com and our WKYC app. We got some interesting news from the Cleveland police today. They say that federal agents are not coming to Cleveland as part of Trump's Operation Legend, but they are here. And there are more coming, but they say it's not part of what the White House said they are specifically coming here for. We'll dive into that. We've also got the new numbers related to COVID-19 here in Ohio. And we'll talk about what the World Health Organization is saying about herd immunity across the U.S. and across the globe, really. And also we'll tell you what you need to know about tonight's home opener when Major League Baseball returns to Cleveland. And we take on the Kansas City Royals tonight at Progressive Field. Let's start with those new numbers from the Ohio Department of Health related to COVID-19. Cases are up again. We saw today the second highest number of new daily reported cases we have seen so far since we became aware of the pandemic being here in Ohio. Deaths are also almost double what we saw yesterday, and the U.S. has now passed 4 million reported cases of COVID-19. Here in Ohio, in the last 24 hours, the Ohio Department of Health has reported 1,560 new cases of COVID-19. That brings our total number of cases dating all the way back to March 9th to almost 82,000. That exact number is now 81,746. Now, the Ohio Department of Health is also reporting presumed recovered cases. That number is now at 56,823. So that's about 70% of the cases that we've known about here in the state of Ohio are now presumed to have been recovered. So that also means, if you flip that on its head, 30% of the known COVID-19 cases are presumed to be active right now in the state of Ohio. Now, in the last 24 hours, there have been 41 new deaths reported related to COVID-19. Now, keep in mind, there is a lag in the way this data comes into the Ohio Department of Health. That doesn't mean that 41 people died in the last 24 hours. It means that 41 deaths were reported in the last 24 hours. That brings the total number of deaths in Ohio related to COVID-19 to almost 3,300. That exact number is 3,297 at this time. The total number of hospitalizations we've seen in Ohio related to COVID-19 is now over 10,000. We saw 104 new hospitalizations reported in the last 24 hours. Now, this number is a lot closer to real-time data because the hospitals have a more apt reporting system for this kind of information. They just have more access to information and can get it put out there more quickly when they're not waiting for tests to come back, when they're not waiting for autopsies and things of those nature. There are now currently 1,085 people who are actually hospitalized today with COVID-19 issues. That's about 10.8% of all the people who have been hospitalized are currently hospitalized right now. We saw 16 new ICU admissions reported in the last 24 hours, bringing that total number up to 2,419 for all the people who have been treated in the intensive care unit related to COVID-19. And today, there are now 354 people who are actively in an ICU related to COVID-19. So of all the people who are hospitalized, of those 1,085 people who are hospitalized right now, 354 of them are in the ICU. So that's just under 33% of people in the ICU out of all the people who are hospitalized right now. Now let's take a look at the national and the global numbers. We get these numbers from Johns Hopkins University. As I said before, the U.S. has now surpassed 4 million known cases of COVID-19. That exact number is 4,070,480. That's just over 72,000 new cases reported in the last 24 hours on the U.S. level. The total number of deaths in the U.S. is now 144,734. Now, if you take a look at the number of deaths compared to the number of known COVID-19 cases in the U.S., that's about a 3.6% death rate. Thankfully, we have been seeing that go down over the past couple of weeks while we've been looking at these national and global numbers every afternoon. The U.S. is still holding steady. We have about 26% of the known global cases of COVID-19 and about 23% of the known global deaths related to COVID-19. Globally, there are now 15,588,913 reported cases of COVID-19, and there have now been 634,954 reported deaths globally related to COVID-19. Now, if you compare the number of global deaths to the number of known global cases, that's a 4.1% death rate, which has also been chipping down ever so slightly as we've been looking at these numbers over the past couple of weeks. Now, bringing it back here to Northeast Ohio, the coronavirus situation does appear to be stabilizing in Cuyahoga County, but we are not out of the woods by any means. We are stabilizing, but we're not necessarily stabilizing in a great situation. So the good news is it's not necessarily getting worse, but we do maintain that level 3 red alert status, and that has been characterized as very high exposure and spread, where people are supposed to limit their activities as much as possible under that new alert system from Governor Mike DeWine. And it wasn't long ago that we were on the verge of level 4, that purple color-coded alert, where there is considered to be severe exposure and spread, and people are only supposed to leave their home for supplies and services. Now, here in Cuyahoga County, new cases are still relatively high, but they are down a bit from previous weeks. And the number of hospital beds that are being used is staying steady, but it is still high, people. It is about 80% occupancy for adult hospital beds. Now, it hasn't risen much, but this is still the highest level that we've seen in Cuyahoga County during the pandemic since we became aware of it here in Ohio. Again, that was back on March 9th. Now, if we look at the testing positivity rate in Cuyahoga County, it's higher than we've seen at the state level. Specifically in Cuyahoga County, it's at 7.5%. That is above the recommended that's a tongue twister, above the World Health Organization threshold of 5%. And if we look in Cuyahoga County specifically at the number of people who have died this week, it's been 34 Cuyahoga County residents who have passed away this week related to COVID-19. Now, when we talk about the coronavirus, a lot of people are tossing around this phrase, herd immunity. Herd immunity is what happens when people become immune to something so it doesn't spread as much or as quickly. When a lot of people become immune to it, even if one person has it, the likelihood of them coming into contact with someone who is actually already immune to it is a little bit higher. So what this does is it helps protect the community. It even helps protect people who aren't immune to it because it's not spreading necessarily through those people who are already immune. Now, the World Health Organization chief says that herd immunity is not around yet. I don't think that's a big surprise to anyone. In the modern world, we usually get to herd immunity with vaccines, but it can happen through natural infection. So the chief scientist at the World Health Organization, that person's name is Dr. Soumya Swaminathan, estimates that we would need about 50 to 60% of the population to be immune to COVID-19 for there to be any protective herd immunity effect. Some experts even say we need as much as 70 to 80% of the population to have antibodies before there's any herd immunity effect. And also keep in mind, the coronavirus has only been around that we've been aware of here in Ohio since March. It's only been around for a couple months. We know very little about this disease. We don't even know how long antibodies stay in the system or how much of an immunity effect those antibodies actually really deliver. So keep that in mind as well while we're talking about this. But when you're talking about experts who say we need 50 to 60% of the population and some experts saying we need 70 to 80% of the population, right now the world population is about 7.8 billion people. Right now, according to Johns Hopkins University, we have 15.6 million known cases of COVID-19. You don't have to be great at math to know that's nowhere near 50 to 60%, nowhere near 70 to 80%. Now, if you look at individual countries that have been hit hard by COVID-19, some of them have about 5 to 10% of people who have antibodies. In some countries, it's as high as 20% of people that have antibodies. Here in the US, the population is about 328.2 million. We have about 4.1 million cases. That's about 1.2% of the population infected. So here in the US, we are also nowhere near herd immunity. Also, at that rate where only 1.2% of the population has been affected that we know of, we've already had 145,000 deaths. That's a little bit scary. That's a lot of people. Just a number to keep in mind there so we can keep an idea to the number of the people who have been, that we know of, infected by this, and the number of people that we know of that have died from COVID-19. Now, in the pandemic's early stages, there were some countries, including the United Kingdom, that said maybe achieving herd immunity would be an appropriate outbreak response. But the World Health Organization chief pointed out that a vaccine to get to that herd immunity level is a lot safer than letting the virus just rip through the population. So that's where we stand when it comes to herd immunity. We are pretty far off at this point. Now let's talk about that Operation Legend situation that the White House was talking about earlier this week. The Cleveland chief of police says that federal officers are not coming to Cleveland. Sort of. Chief Calvin Williams said that there are no federal troops coming to Cleveland related to Operation Legend. Cleveland Police, the account, tweeted today that there are local, state, and federal investigators here who are working to combat violent crimes in partnered law enforcement efforts. The account also tweeted that the Cleveland Division of Police has strong partnerships with law enforcement agencies at the local, state, and federal levels, that there are resources here and there are resources coming. But he said those resources that are coming are part of joint initiatives that were announced early this year. So that's very confusing. But he might be referring to something that's called the Relentless Pursuit Initiative. Now, this is an initiative that's designed to fight violent crime in our neighborhoods and is designed to work with federal, state, and local partners. That was announced back in January. But this statement from the Cleveland Police is in direct contradiction to what the White House said yesterday. The Trump administration said that it was sending federal agents to Cleveland as part of Operation Legend. Now, Operation Legend was created in response to what President Donald Trump calls, quote, a radical movement to defund, dismantle, and dissolve our police department. Operation Legend was named after Legend Telefero. Now, this is a 4-year-old boy who was shot and killed in Kansas City last month. Now, here in Cleveland, yesterday, officials said they were not aware of federal agents coming to Cleveland connected to Operation Legend. Now, federal agents are already in Portland, Oregon, connected to this Operation Legend, and local authorities say that the federal agents in the area are only making things more tense on the streets. There are reports of agents in unmarked cars that are taking people away without probable cause, causing a lot of people to be incredibly concerned about whether constitutional rights are being protected in Portland, Oregon. Now, Trump says that next federal agents will go to Kansas City, Chicago, and Albuquerque, and then here in Cleveland, Detroit, and Milwaukee. Now, if you take a look at those cities, you may notice that they're mostly controlled by Democrats, and Trump, who is a Republican, says that this rise in violent crime that he's talking about is a result of what he calls the, quote, radical left. But criminal justice experts do not agree with that. They say that's an oversimplification of the situation and that overall, crime is down this year. So the Cleveland police are saying that we will not have federal agents coming to Cleveland as a part of Operation Legend, but we will have agents coming here as part of an initiative that's already been announced. A little bit confusing, but that seems to be the gist of what they're saying. Now let's turn to a story that's honoring 2 teens out of Shaker Heights who unfortunately lost their lives in a tragic hammock accident. The Cleveland Ballet honored these teens by performing a live performance today. They streamed that live. So back in June, 14-year-old Scout and 12-year-old Chasey, they are the Scaravelli sisters, they were playing on a hammock with their younger siblings, and a brick pillar that was holding that hammock collapsed on them. Unfortunately, Scout and Chasey did not make it. So the Cleveland Ballet honored them with a show today. They performed a beautiful performance with excerpts from the Nutcracker and also the Magic Flute. That was at noon today on the Facebook page of University Hospital's Rainbow Babies and Children's. And we have that up on WKYC.com. Now, their father, JJ Scaravelli, talked with our 3 News Laura Queso about his daughters and how they were beautiful both outside and in, and how it was their inner beauty that really made them something special. They went to the all-girls private school, Hathaway Brown, in Shaker Heights, and the girls will have a scholarship honoring them in their name at the school. So that's something very special to honor the memory of those girls. And of course, our hearts go out to the Scaravelli family. We want to give you one more reminder before we let you go today that this is opening day and baseball is returning to Cleveland today. Our Cleveland baseball team will take on the Kansas City Royals at Progressive Field. That starts at 7:10 p.m. We have a very special edition of What's New for you today. It'll be an opening day extravaganza with lots of cool stuff. We do have some people who are inside Progressive Field. Of course, they are reserving all the safe requirements for physical distancing, wearing masks, all of that good stuff. And you'll be able to watch the Cleveland baseball team take on the Kansas City Royals right here on Channel 3. That starts at 7:10 p.m. You can catch that on Channel 3, and then if you want to listen to it on the radio, you can listen to WTAM 1100 to hear them call the game. And for all of the opening day information, all you have to do is text the word TRIBE to 216-344-3300. Again, that's text the word TRIBE to 216-344-3300. That's it for your afternoon update for Friday, July 24th. I'll be back with you here Monday morning with your 3 News Now update. Till then, everyone have an incredible weekend. Enjoy your International Self-Care Day. Take care of yourself. Find a way to treat yourself today and really focus on what makes you feel good. Maybe that includes watching Cleveland take on the Kansas City Royals right here on Channel 3. Everyone have a wonderful day. I'll see you back here on Monday. I'm Stephanie Haney.